And that really set us on our path to thinking about it more in terms of business. And those early years, especially, we took a step past our website, just offering things online. We really were started thinking about all of the craft, and this is before Etsy. This is before this DIY movement and crafting culture really was established. So we really we saw the things like Renegade DIY Trunk Show, which is another local one, Department, which is another local craft sale, and these are indie craft sales. These aren't in gymnasiums. Well, actually, DIY Trunk Show is. But point being that moms and grandmoms aren't necessarily going to these. These are our sorts of craft sales, if that makes sense. So this was our start of dealing with customers directly, and then we started being in more stores, mostly designer toy stores like Rotofuji here locally in Chicago. And we still made actually at this point, all of our plush by hand. It's just we were getting a little bit more refined in terms of design. It was in my blood. I didn't realize that we needed to think about these things like patterns and being consistent, and fancier hang tags, and all the stuff that basically people were thinking about when they saw our stuff in the stores, because we were next to things that were manufactured. So we started saying, you know what, it makes sense. Let's do this for real, and let's start refining these designs, and not losing the quality of being a Shawnnimal, but let's just think about this in a little more of a pro fashion. So I don't want to get too far ahead of us with the handmade stuff, but if we could fast forward for a second, this is more of the more recent handmade goods that we're making. This is from a project that we started for 2008 called The Chronicles of Professor Fliggins. And this is something we worked on with a local writer and poet named Robbie Q. Telfer, really talented, creative guy. So we created this whole blog format to house The Chronicles of Professor Fliggins. He wrote the diary of Professor Fliggins. We created the discoveries that we call them during his journey around the world of Shawnimals. So these in particular, this is Blubba, the sunburnt whale. So he has a blowhole comb over and a baleen, a baleen mustache. Flying Devil is a character from the Dark Forest that interacts with our Ninja Town world, and then Professor Fliggins himself, the discoverers. More recently, we took that same idea of Professor Fliggins and all the things that we learned about doing handmade production and limited edition, having a great website to house this stuff. We took all of that knowledge, but we scaled it back because we knew that Ninja Town was our most popular brand. We loved it. We thought there was a lot of stuff that we could do with it. But we also, as much as we loved the story, we also realized that there was a lot of energy and a lot of expense that went into creating that entire ProfessorIsland.com is the website, that whole Professor Island universe, where we showed off the Professor Fliggins series. So for these ninjas, we came up with Ninja of the Month. So all this stuff is a subscription-based service where we make 100 ninjas per month for the whole year of 2010, and offer them at ninjaofthemonth.com and on our shop page. And that's really what the handmade stuff is about. It's about us doing what we do best in a collectible form, and not having to worry about the issues of manufacturing, not have to worry about the issues of licensing, and at the same time keeping our core market really, really happy. But there is a difference, and this is what we learned through the evolution of Shawnimals, is that there's a big difference between wanting to do something like that's creatively fulfilling, and needing to, because you need the revenue, or you have an order to fill. And that's where ThinkGeek comes in. So I'm going to back up for a second, talk a little bit more about the early handmade stuff, and how that informed the decisions for Shawnimals to grow. And ThinkGeek is a website. How many people know about ThinkGeek? Okay, so a few, 25%. ThinkGeek.com is a website. It's basically a big online store where it has all sorts of crazy electronics and gizmos and geeky related items, and you name it, they have it. T-shirts, just crazy stuff, really, really fun. And they emailed us and they said, hey, Shawnimals, we love the Wee Ninja. How about we order some for the store? and I knew about ThinkGeek. I thought, okay, that's awesome, but how the hell are we going to do this? Because we were still making them by hand. We had no manufacturing set up. How many would you like? Well, the buyer emails back and says, well, how about like 500? and it's a very good problem to have, but it's a very eye-opening problem to have, because we needed that revenue. We needed to fill that order, there's no question. But how the hell are we going to do it? But I mean, there's no time to have it manufactured overseas. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention this. ThinkGeek also makes the Tauntaun sleeping bag, which is amazing. I had nothing to do with this, I just wanted to show you the kind of awesome things that ThinkGeek does. It's adult size, by the way. They had a kid one, they wanted an adult one, so they had it manufactured. Brilliant. But here's the real issue of that purchase order coming in from ThinkGeek. You know, what are we? We're designers, we're not manufacturers. So when you start making thousands and thousands of the same thing, it totally changes the dynamic. It's not fun anymore. It's not creatively energizing. It's a manufacturing, and that's why manufacturers exist. So they can take something like this and make it happen, and allow you to do what you do best, be a designer. So that's what we had to do. So of course it's not that easy, but we had to, and that's really the transition from handmade Shawnimals to manufactured Shawnimals, and that's a very key evolution for us, because it all of a sudden allowed us to make that decision to do it because we wanted to, and not because we had to. But manufacturing, of course, is not easy. We get countless numbers of these kinds of photos of our plush, and these are actually pretty good examples of our plush with these rulers stretched out to let us know if things are working or not, or if there's any changes that we have with the placement or the shape or the size or any other number of features. And it's true that there is obviously a language barrier that exists, but that's not as big of a deal, because we work with a manufacturing route that facilitates the manufacture of goods overseas. But more than that, there's a cultural difficulty that you have to bridge, and that is this stuff in the eyes of so many of the factories is disposable. Now, in some cases, maybe that is. Maybe the dollar store plush toy that you get is essentially disposable, and they need it made for like 5 cents. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to make their margins. For us, though, it's the opposite. Designer toys and collectible toys is more about the thing being designed and made how it's supposed to be made, and then enjoyed by that collector who has a very discerning eye and placed in their collection on their shelf and enjoyed in that fashion. So if there are issues of it being one from the next, if it doesn't look right, the eyes are off center, there's glue, hanging off the side from them trying to attach something. We all know as designers that if you have something that is really elegantly and simply designed, the small changes that are made, the small errors that are made in that design are really, really noticeable. So you can imagine with something like this, the Ninja, for instance, or even the Mustachio. The Ninja has eyes, and that's it. That is, if the eyes are off center, if the eyes are misplaced, it's going to completely change everything. And the same goes to that's the Mustachio. I forgot to mention that. And we'll have a Q&A, so if there's something I'm just totally, glossing over, call me out and ask later on. But we dealt with this time and again, and I think that when we finally got past all of those issues, and the end results were pretty fantastic and very true to what we envisioned our manufactured goods to be, and it allowed us to have thousands and thousands in stock and not have to worry about making these ourselves. And in fact, the ThinkGeek customer base didn't care if they were handmade or not. That's not the same market. So for them, if all of a sudden ThinkGeek gets it a little cheaper and they're able to lower the price a little bit, then they're happy, the customers are happy, and we get more orders. So that's a good thing. But it's very different than the handmade stuff, and that's okay.